from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Hello there,
There we
everyone.
go.
Hi.
Sorry about that.
No problem. That's Peter Coles, our trusty, dusty producer. Today is a very special day because we are doing a special today. This is a special that may appear on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, so you may be watching this program after the live broadcast here Tuesday morning, June 1st, 6 to 8. You may be watching, who knows, next Thursday night at 8 o'clock or whatever. But as you see from the flag behind me, this is Gay Pride Month in Westfield, and it's a very special, historic day for everyone because we are actually putting the flag up on the flagpole at the mayor's
City
Hall, and
This
also,
is why you need a third party. You see.
That's right. Yes, and and the green. Tonight, you will see the flag flying on the green. And Peter, am I looking at this camera or the big camera over there?
You look at the one closer to the TV, Bob.
The one closer to the TV. Okay, gotcha. So with all of this in mind, I've got to tell you that it was sort of a pleasure to sort of put together this program because I, as you all know, are an out gay man who is married, and you'll see on the screen that's a picture of, or that's a live picture of my spouse, James Homan, who is sitting in our living room over there on West Silver Street.
So here's your official. He's your co-host today.
Well, he is my co-host, and we're expecting Ronna Little to come on. She is a wonderful woman in our community who works at Westfield State, and she hopefully will be on soon. But while we're waiting around for Ronna, we will begin our program with James. And I wondered, Peter, as I was preparing the program, I started to think, I'm no expert on this subject, believe it or not. I started to watch a great series on FX called Pride. It's a series of 6 episodes telling the history through the stories of some very important figures in American history. And while I was doing that, I was also looking through several websites, a Safe Zone website, a parents of gay, lesbian youth, PFLAG it's called, and I was learning so much that I didn't know. So I hope that as we tell our stories today, that you will gain some knowledge of the gay experience in Westfield, the gay experience in New York City, the gay experience throughout the world.
But isn't it most powerful and authentic if it just comes from you and your experiences?
Much more powerful than just facts. Much more powerful than
people hate statistics, but they will connect to a story from somebody.
Very, very true. And I think that I know, as somebody who knows how it is to live in the closet, as we say, what it's like when you're out of the closet and free of that stigma. And our stories, while we're in the closet as well as out of the closet, make for really good listening, I hope. And I wanted to ask James as we begin, the word gay to you, when did you start using that? James is my spouse.
Hi.
Hi.
The word gay, I think, crept into the vernacular in the 70s, probably early 70s, which was, of course, the decade of liberation for so many Black Pride, Women's Lib, gay organizations, gay men, etc. So I think that's when the word gay sort of crept into my being able to use it. I had looked up the word homosexual in 5th grade.
You did?
I did, yes, because, well, there was this guy in school. His name was Frank Chinelli, and he was sort of, anyway, he'd not passed like a few years, so he was a little older. And in 6th grade, he started, his beard started coming out, so he started shaving. So he was this sort of hot young man. And I thought, I have an attraction to him, and didn't know exactly what it was. So because no one in my family ever talked about such things, nor did we really understand or know people that, I think my parents knew people, but they weren't willing to admit it.
Well, in 1970, you were born in 1958. I was born in 1945. And
I was born in 1948.
48. What did I say? 58?
58. Thanks for giving me 10 years.
Oh, my God. Well,
James, you'll have to have discussions when you get home.
Really? That'll end
Bob
this
needs his
marriage.
re-education.
Yeah. That I'm married to such a younger man, for Pete's sake.
That's more of a scandal, Bob, than you think.
Oh, gosh. Yes, it is. It really is. But if you really think about it, we never even talked about sex in our families. Sex was a taboo. I came from a very Catholic family. You didn't come from a Catholic family. You came from a Midwestern family in Kenosha, Wisconsin, of all places, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And did your family have open discussions about sexual matters, et cetera, et cetera?
Not at all.
Not at all. So
not at all.
Yeah. Most families didn't back then, Bob.
No.
It was kind of a taboo thing.
Oh, very much
in the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when all your media outlets were portraying people couldn't even sleep in the same bed if they were heterosexual.
Oh, that's exactly right.
Do you know what I mean? So look at that norm, and to think about people talking about being homosexual at that time was just unthinkable at the time.
That's correct. And when you think,
which doesn't mean they didn't exist.
Oh my God, no, they absolutely existed. Absolutely.
Right. They absolutely existed, but everything was illegal. And I met men in New York City working at the Gay Men's Health Crisis who were a lot older than I and who had been arrested for holding hands with another friend in the Village in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And if men were found with more than 3 pieces of female clothing on, they were also arrested for that. Or if women were found with more than 3 pieces of male clothing on, they were also arrested for that. So it was highly illegal, never discussed. It was following World War II. It was an era of prosperity, and the American dream was what everybody was searching for.
Yeah.
That did not include anything that had to do with anything as healthy as sex.
Or difference. This was the time, 50s and 60s, when suddenly people were beginning to recognize that that Black Lives Matter, for instance, that female lives matter, et cetera, during the 50s and the 60s. Those movements were happening right tangentially with what was happening with the LGBTQI movement. Exactly right. The first time that I ever remember wondering what the word gay, which I didn't know at the time, but what it was to be different was my mother said to me, there is this man who walks on our street by our house every day. You will avoid him. And please avoid him. Do not talk to him. And later on, he turned out to be the cousin of my sister's best friend. And he ended up being a gay man. And so my mother had this real fear early on that there was either something different with her son, or she had to protect her son from the cruel world out there, or the scary world of difference out there. And psychologically, I think that we learn about our sexuality. We really grow into who we are as sexual beings a lot later than we do. Well, we know about it early. We know about that, but we don't. Or we know about society. Let me get this clear. We know about society before we know about our sexuality. We grow into who we are. We grow into our identity. And so when you're young and feel that you're different,
Rana,
it's something. Look at this. Rana Lytle. Rana, tell everybody where you're from and who you are. Everybody knows James Holman, my spouse here.
Good morning, James. Good morning, Bob. I am Rana Lytle.
Yep.
I am a member of the Westfield State community. I lived in Westfield for many years. I'm the administrative assistant to ethnic and gender studies, language and culture studies, and sociology, and currently the interim assistant to the dean of the College of Education, Health and Human Services. And I'm the AFSCME steward for Unit 1 there at Westfield State. I'm still very connected to the city of Westfield and very proud of my connections and love the work that y'all are doing there. So I'm very happy to be here. I worked with Bob for many years at Westfield and happy to be able to be on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, you were referencing that we've been working on a whole variety of things for Westfield. The Westfield Gay Pride, well, it's actually called the Westfield Pride Alliance. And working on LGBTQI issues here on our town. And you're going to meet some of those members of that committee today on our show. But Rana, how do you identify?
I am a lesbian.
Uh-huh. And James, how do you identify?
I've always been gay. I've never been in.
Yeah.
No, really, I never had a closet to come out of.
Uh-huh.
That is beautiful.
So I've just kind of lived my life.
Well, you knew early on in your life, and you knew and you celebrated it, right? Is that correct? Right through your adolescence and your early life.
I've had a great life.
Yeah.
So I have celebrated a lot of aspects of it. That's true.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the number of men I've slept with.
Oh,
but,
man.
I know. But yeah. Anyway, I've never been in a closet. I was born with a twin brother, an identical twin. So
was I, for that matter. Yeah.
I've shared a womb, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but certainly closeness and being connected to another human being is something I enjoyed early on. And I think it's been, a factor, a decision-making factor in my life.
Yeah.
Whether or not my gay identification has anything to do with that or not, you'll have to research. I don't know. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I wondered your gender identity, both of you. Your gender identity. How do you identify gender-wise?
I am a cisgendered woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say cisgendered, for those that don't know that word, CIS gender, what does that mean?
Well, cis came out. The term cisgender came out to a few years ago for those of us that when we were born, the doctor looked at what was below the waist and marked a box. And those of us that aligned with that box that the doctor marked and what was below our waist, we're considered cisgender. Yeah. There is a scientific term. It comes out of computer science, I want to say, but
Yes.
I think it's an acronym, but I don't know what the three. Yeah, I don't know what the three letters stand for.
Yeah. James, you identify as
fluid. I'm pretty fluid. I've always been, as a child, I was always teased for being, feminine, for sounding like my mother on the phone, things like that. So I always wondered what that was. And actually, the older I got, the more I suspect that my gender might have been determined at birth, because my father was determined to have only sons. And so I don't know, but anatomically, I'm kind of interesting because I'm a perfect size 8. Anyway, but that, you don't know that until you get into drag and start, dressing up and stuff like that. So I used to be a pretty hot, female impersonator during the Pride parades in New York City. And we've stopped traffic, actually. That was 60 pounds ago. I mean, I put on a lot of weight since, but I've enjoyed drag as much as I've enjoyed leather. So they're both costumes, but I mean, they're kind of, I would want to identify as more of a fluid person.
Right. And whereas I would probably identify, James always said that I was a latent heterosexual for some reason.
Yes, I married my husband. I married a latent heterosexual.
But basically, I identify as a gay man, and I use the term.
Wait a minute, James. That might explain a lot.
Yeah. Yes, Peter. He and him are the pronouns that I use, and James uses what? He and him. I would say he and him. The pronouns that you use, Rana, are
she, her.
She, her. Whereas perhaps if you're a transgendered person, you might use a different pronoun. And this is we need to identify who we are. I mean, how important is it to have an identity? Rana, why don't you handle that number? Why, talk about identity in your life and freedom.
Well, identity for me is so so layered. I present as a woman. The box that the doctor checked off, I've gone along and said, yeah, okay, that works. Yep, that one works.
Yeah. On
occasion, I've dressed in drag, and that's been kind of fun. But usually I like my dresses and my frilly tops. But like James says, it's a costume. But for me, identity is even more layered because I'm a woman of color.
Ah, yes.
And I'm a Jewish person. So it's
You're kidding. Are you really? Oh.
Yes. So then you have faith, and you have your who you are loving involved, and how you walk through this world. So most people will just see me in the supermarket and they'll just say Black woman.
But you're a Black Jewish lesbian.
I'm a Black Jewish lesbian. Yes,
that is so cool.
Yes, and I have all the, it hasn't been all bad, but some of the history, I carry that with me. So I own those identities. And a lot of our young people are trying to figure out what their identity is so that they can own them and they can respect the past as well as help the future. Like you two, you've come through and you have been our anchor as to who we were in the 60s in New York doing drag
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and living a true life. And so our identity helps us not only respect our past, but also and our elders of our past, but also help us move our world forward. So identity is quite layered for me.
Oh, yeah. For me, interestingly enough, I have a different experience than James. I lived in Springfield until I was 27 years old, and at that point, I began to really come out in the world of theater. I was doing theater, and I knew everybody in theater, and everybody knew me. And my first gay experiences were out in the world, were later in life. And earlier than that, I was going to be, of all things, a priest. I went to Holy Cross. I chose not to be a priest at the end of Holy Cross, but I was basically in the closet as far as my family was concerned, as far as the people who really didn't know me, my workplace, etc., etc. Now, whether people thought to themselves, there's a gay man or whatever, I would assume at times they might have done that. Certainly, I couldn't throw a baseball. I couldn't play sports. I had a twin brother who was straight as all get out, played sports, etc., etc., as James did. James had a twin brother who was, I meant to ask that question earlier, but I'll tell everybody that his brother is a straight man. Both our brothers are straight as far as we know. It's very interesting that those conversations kind of like, come up. Have you? Yeah, Ronnie, you're biting at the bit there to say something.
I'm laughing because recently I was watching this program, Pride. It's on FX.
Oh, I was saying that we've been watching it ourselves. We've got one more episode to watch. Yes, it's worth watching.
It is worth watching. And something that they were saying is, for many people, in the first episode, they talk about people had parties, people connected. It wasn't, you didn't share. A lot of people in the in what we're calling the early days, they didn't.
Yeah.
40s and the 50s, they weren't sharing who they were with outside the bedroom, who was at their house, unless you were very close knit. You had a community, and so the idea that, like you said, you didn't tell your coworkers who you might have been seeing. They might have known, but you didn't, but you weren't sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then it came through in like the 60s and the 70s where some people went into that closet. I remember someone telling me about the first Northampton Pride,
mm-hmm.
and the first few Northampton Prides,
uh-huh.
in which people with jobs wore paper bags over their heads because they were very worried about losing their jobs and what that would mean for their families. So
mm-hmm.
there's this time where you don't speak about who's at your house unless your coworkers and your colleagues are like really close and embedded and part of your maid family or your intimates. So it's interesting that now we are like, yes, this is my wife. This is my husband. This is my world. I live in that house. And so I find it very interesting. And after watching that up, I was like, well, yeah, they made community. They made families. They still had relationships. They just weren't as pronounced.
Right.
And a lot of parents might have known and was like, okay, well,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the 20s and 30s, or even the teens in this country, in New York City, men wore boutonnieres in their lapels, and a green carnation was a sign to other homosexuals that you were homosexual. And then that evolved to wearing your tie and your pocket handkerchief being the same color or pattern or anything. So there were very subtle indications. All of this was totally underground.
Oh,
but
yeah.
there were very subtle indications. And
After The Wizard of Oz came out, there was the common phrase, I go to Dorothy's church, because Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz somehow was, Judy Garland was equated to the gay life, et cetera, et
and
cetera.
do you know why?
No,
do you know why?
tell us.
Because what did she go to Oz with? A little basket. And in that basket would live Toto.
Yes.
Well, she had everything she needed in her little basket. And so that's why gay men adopted, because when they go out, all you take is one clutch, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Well, I've got a story that will probably maybe shock Rona. I don't know, maybe not. But this will show you what it was like in the 60s. I first would have to change every pronoun if indeed I was referring to my quote-unquote boyfriend. He became a she. Yep. In certain circles. If I was singing a song, and I, as a singer, I would sing all the time, I would want to sing, you know, I love him, whereas I would change the lyrics, et cetera, et cetera. Privately, I would be singing correctly. When I got my 1A during the Vietnam War, okay, they have on the form, they had the word, "Are you a homosexual?" And I didn't check that box. I did not check that box. I would go to fight because if you were homosexual, you were probably not going to be fighting in Vietnam.
No, it was an automatic excusal.
Automatic excusal. And so I chose, and I was doing everything I could, Rana, to get out of fighting in the Vietnam War. My mother had letters written to the draft board, etc. I knew as my own identity that I really was not fit to be a soldier. You don't want to have a gun in this crazy hand, for one. And two, you know, I would faint at the sight of mortar or anything like that. I just know that. So I called the Quakers, et cetera, et cetera. But yet, when it came down to putting a check mark next to the word homosexual, I refused to do it. Now, that's how much in the closet I was. And you wonder, I so applaud young folks today who take that stance and really outwardly declare who they are, their identity. You know, my sexual life is not important to the world at large. It really shouldn't be important to the world at large. It's a personal matter between me and my spouse, or me and my partners, et cetera, et cetera. And yet it's just seemed that made a difference. It's very, very important for me, and I made a point once I came out that I would definitely say loudly and proudly that I'm gay. And in Westfield, as you know, I think most people recognize that. And we have people, when we were moving up here in 2000, were saying, "Oh, you're not going to that conservative town. You're going to be, you know, et cetera." Did you have that? I wonder if you thought that same thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were like, really? You know, they vote Republican all the time.
I know.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, but I have a job there, and I would prefer not to drive very far all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a question from the straight side of the street here.
Oh, go ahead.
Were you guys
Peter.
surprised that the community was welcoming, or was it not?
It was very welcoming. It was very welcoming, and it was a very big surprise because I was coming from the island of Manhattan. There are so few Republicans on that island. And suddenly I'm in Westfield. The island of Westfield had more Republicans than I'd ever lived around. So it was very much a surprise, a wonderful surprise.
Was it a bit of fear of the unknown
Um,
when you were coming here? Or were you coming here no matter what?
oh no, I'm pretty adventurous.
Okay, yeah, I do know that.
Yeah.
Knowing you,
You know-
as long as I have now, yes, I do know that.
Yeah, the fear of the unknown has never been fearful to me. The unknown actually is more interesting than what I know.
Well, that's
What I know is pretty scary.
a wonderful quote, because the unknown, yeah, as you develop or you learn who you are, your own identity, it's so much more exciting to realize that I have all these facets. It's so great for me to know that my community has all of these facets. The heterosexual community has all of these facets. We're all on a spectrum. I mean, that's the interesting thing, right, Rana?
Yes, that is. And that's when I was at UMass as an undergrad, I took a class with a well-known psychologists, and they helped us understand that, you know, sexuality is a spectrum. And I, at that time when I was at UMass, it's like I knew, but I wanted to make sure. And all of my friends were gay at college, and I was like, but I don't want to date any of you. Y'all are my friends.
Yeah.
And so when the professor said, you know, sexuality is a spectrum, and she was talking to us about the work that Kinsey was doing, and I was like, okay, yeah. My friends, we would have these little, well, what floor are you on in the Kinsey spectrum? And so in college, I was like, well, I'm currently in the middle because I think I know what I want, but I'm still kind of learning and maturing. So I didn't want to say yes, I was hetero, because I didn't believe that. And I'd had some experiences with same-sex partners, but it was experimenting. I was young.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I didn't want to say that yes there, but sometimes I like to play. I'm a Libra, so sometimes I like to play in the balance.
Oh, yes, right.
And then be like, okay, let's see what I'm really, how I mature and how I age. And so, yeah.
When was your first experience? When was your first experience? What age?
I would say my first kiss was about 10.
Oh, good. Early.
Yeah.
Me too.
It was my best friend's big sister. She had great lips.
Oh, good.
She had great lips.
Well, I'll have to tell you that my first kiss was probably it has to do with Westfield. I joined the Westfield Theater Group. Which led to my professional careers. People who listen to my show regularly might know. And it was around age 26. I often said, according to the John Denver song, I was born in the summer of my 27th year, coming home to a place I'd never been before. That Rocky Mountain High quote, even though it's talking about Colorado, is so appropriate for my life. So look at the difference. I mean, like 6, 10? I mean, like, holy mother, 26? I waited 20 years.
Bob, we discussed this on your show Around the Common Table. It's because you're a repressed Catholic. That's why.
Oh,
we know what the drill is.
Oh. Which I
gotta tease him a little bit.
Yeah, no, yes. That's so true.
Father Savage gives him so much grief about using that line.
I have a show on WCPC called Around the Common Table, where I sit with an imam, a priest, a rabbi, and 3 ministers from different faiths, all talking about the importance of faith and spiritual life, which sort of gets me to ask you, as a Black Jewish woman, gay woman, lesbian, what was that like? Did you have to do some reconciliation there within yourself or within your community, your faith community,
Well, not so much within my faith community, because my faith community is pretty open. Even I'm part of the Ahava Sahim in Westfield. They've been very open and welcoming. You know, I'm the only woman of color that I believe they've ever had. So they're just like, we love it. Come on. So not so much in my faith community, because I have been on the reform side. So they've been more like, if I had grown up very conservative, there might have been some issues there. As a woman of color, there were times where my mother said to me in college, "Is there something you want to tell me?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, I know you have a lot of friends that are gay, and you go to all the gay events." And I was like, "No, I don't have to tell you anything. I don't know what you're talking about." I wasn't ready at that time.
Yeah.
When I was ready, I told everyone. I was like, "Listen,
shouted from the rooftops."
Yeah, I was like, I'm bringing my girlfriend to the family event, and if someone had an issue, they dealt with it on their own, and then they were just very welcoming in my family. I'm the oldest of 8 children.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
do you have any brothers or sisters who are LGBTQI?
No, I'm the only one.
Wow.
Special.
Right. So they've all currently have lived their lives, as far as I have known, very on the heterosexual side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So.
For you folks, you see the name Tina Gorman there. Tina Gorman is a LGBTQI ally. Tina,
she must have a twin too.
Yeah.
She does.
Look, she's got them. That's right. There are 2 boxes there.
There are 2 Tinas.
I don't think the first one was a successful login, so.
I got you. Well, that's kind of nice that she has that whole space to herself down there. Tina, Rana, do you know Rana Lytel? Tina Gorman. You may meet.
I do not know Rana. Hi, Rana. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Rana. Tina is a big star in our book because she runs the Westfield Senior Center and is an active ally in our cause and a great addition to our community, our LGBTQIA. If we add the ally back here, you must be there someplace, Tina. Tell us about how you fit in as a member of the community, as the director of the senior center. Tell us.
Well, interestingly, I'm glad that James is on this this Zoom, because it was really James who kind of opened my eyes. And we were, if you recall, James, we had the cabaret. WOW had one of the cabarets here. Mm-hmm. Like this was like 4 or 5 years ago. And before it started, James came up to me and we were socializing with a lot of people there. And he said, "Tina, can the senior center do something for, older members of the LGBTQ community?" And I have to admit that I kind of said, "I don't know what all those letters even stand for, my goodness." And so my initial reaction was, well, sure. I mean, we are a senior center for Westfield seniors, and all of them, and we've done special programming for those in, the Latino community, in the Russian community. And, I said, sure. And interestingly, about 6 weeks after James and I about a month after James and I had that conversation, I had something that came across my email from the Holyoke Senior Center, and they were doing a training for senior center staff and Council on Aging staff on working with LGBTQ older adults. And I thought, the timing couldn't be better, because I realized really early on, I have to start with education. I have to become educated. My staff has to become educated, because I can't really help a group and support a group if I don't understand them. And so my program director and I, Mary Lou Najelski, and I went to this half-day training, and it was eye-opening. And that was really the beginning of our journey here at the Senior Center. And as we went through that, we began to include more staff members in training, and also my board of directors. And I have to admit that I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I mean, most of the members of my board are older themselves, not all of them, but most of them are. I really wasn't sure. And I was unbelievably pleasantly surprised with how my board embraced, the whole idea. And some of them came to the Safe Zone training that we did here at the Senior Center for staff. We had actually recruited someone from Westfield State University, and I know, Rana, you wear many hats at Westfield State, but we had recruited a student who was doing a research project, had actually come to me, and had wanted to do a research project, and she needed to do it for a class. And she had some ideas of what she wanted to do, which had nothing to do with what I wanted her to do. And because I said to her what I wanted her to do, is I said, we need to start doing some research on the LGBTQ community, older adults in Westfield. Who are they? Where are they? What do they need? And I said, I need a starting point. And it was really that student who embraced that research project and worked with Denny Akins to kind of set up some focus groups, brought some folks in, and then wrote a very detailed report, which I then took to my board as a starting place and as a learning tool. So that project was just was what really, I think, the catalyst for starting everything going on at the Senior Center. And out of that, Denny and I sort of started to try to figure out how we could reach out to older adults in the community. And, of course, one of the first things that Mary Lou and I had learned at our training, which was probably the one takeaway, just the most significant takeaway, they showed the guy who did it had a slide, and he had a stick figure of a person, and underneath the person he had all the typical supports: family, faith community, health, legal, all of these things underneath. And one by one, he said, members, especially older adults, and I'm talking about people in their 80s and 90s who are in the LGBTQ community, who have, many of them have really had to live their life in the closet and, afraid. And he started taking away from the slide, okay, a lot of them were disowned by their families, so we took that away. And a lot of them were, not really helped by the health community. We took that away. And as he started taking all these things, and not even recognized by, the social service agencies that would be there to help them. And in the end, you had this person who was just kind of alone. And that image, I asked him for a copy of the PowerPoint. So I have that image. And I just thought, that is so not what we are about. That is, we have to do something about that. So I think all of that kind of, started this whole, movement, I guess, at the Senior Center to be more inclusive and to really understand and to learn. And I learn all the time. And I have told members of the LGBT community, you have to realize that, as an ally, we don't know. And we're going to probably ask what seem to be very silly and stupid questions to you. But that's how we learn. I mean, any teacher will tell you, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'd rather have people asking. And sometimes I'm asking on their behalf. So the first thing I had to do was, I was listening as I was driving in, and I was listening to James and Ron. I was listening to you talking as Bob was asking you about gender identity. And I got to tell you, as I'm driving in, I'm thinking, oh my God, this can be so confusing for those of us kind of, trying to get it, trying to look at things through your lens. And through your perspective.
Sure.
So,
Well, it's interesting because if you did the same kind of looking at the spectrum of, let's just say, male, female, where you fit, et cetera, what your likes, your desires, et cetera, you will differ from the next straight woman and the next straight woman. And that
yes.
spectrum, wouldn't it be wonderful if we were all on a spectrum of humanity? And
Yeah.
that's something that this flag represents to me. And this is a progress flag that is so important for us. We're going to start flying it today, June 1st. If you're watching later in the month, today we're taping on June 1st in the morning. But tonight we have a wonderful flag raising at City Hall, where for a week our flag will fly there. And for the first time in Westfield, very historic, the flag, this gay pride flag, will fly under the American flag on the town green. And I hope it opens up that a discussion about what life is like for our LGBTQ meaning interested, incidentally, if you're wondering what that I is stand for. Sometimes there's a C for curious. We could add C for curious. We could go on and on.
No, that's what the Q is. The Q is for questioning.
Oh, is that right?
Queer and questioning,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, as you were talking, Tina, I was thinking, oh, man, if I had to take a quiz about LGBTQI life, I am, oh my God. And, I taught sociology on a college level. So you would think I would be an expert. Oh no. And when it comes to that, where I am on a spectrum, where am I an LGBT? Am I trans, et cetera, what the differences are, it's very difficult to know, except difference is to be celebrated. Difference is to be celebrated. Ronnie,
and can I
ahead.
just point out that I think the differences are celebrated more within the queer community than within the straight community.
I agree.
Totally. You have differences. What was curious about living in New York from the 70s until the late 90s was to see the gay pride parade change. And initially it was everybody together. In the mid 70s when it started, everybody just showed up and did their thing. And then by the late 70s, there were gay doctors, and then there were gay lawyers.
Marching units. They would have marching units.
The marching units. And then by the 90s, there were gay anesthesiologists and gay
people with dogs, gay people with Siamese cats.
It became a smaller segments of everything, which was a little upsetting to me because I like the concept of everybody together. But that you have to then subdivide the categories, that was curious to me, very curious. But I don't think there's I just think that we should be recognized for celebrating that entire spectrum. You have drag queens, you have leather men, you have dykes on bikes, you have, there's just a lot of us that are, and although those segments don't necessarily always get along, they are celebrated in total, en masse,
Yeah, I wonder, Tina, what is for you as a member of our allies? Do you, here we have a whole movement founded on who we are. I wondered whether, and I'm trying to find words to say. We're a lot more than what happens in a bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at a gay person now, as opposed to before, perhaps, Is there a filter that goes through your mind as you look at us and you have questions for us, or do you see the whole person as opposed to just this narrow? I often wonder, and I often wondered, even in that gay pride parade in New York, that when we have women or men dressed as women, women dressed as men, women bearing their breasts, all kinds of different looking folks, whether it scares folks away from knowing my true humanity. And at any rate, I've said a lot to have an answer here.
Well, interestingly, Bob, some of my closest friends in high school were gay and lesbian. However, I went to high school in the early 70s, so I wasn't aware. Right. So I really knew them as, people. They were on athletic teams and they were in National Honor Society with me and they were cheerleaders with me. And, so that was, and I didn't know until after college, really. And then it was, so what was great about that was that I knew them as a person. I didn't know them as, whatever their sexuality was. And so I think for me, that's, as you said, that's one piece of your life. I mean, I don't really talk much with other people about what I do in the bedroom with my husband. That's one piece of my life. I mean, right. I'm a lot more than that. Yeah. And so, for me, people are people, I think. But I think that there is that factor. You're right, Bob. I think there's a difference between, people who do drag and, some of the other stuff that is, maybe a little scary for those of us who are in the straight community, because it's different. It's not something that we can relate to. So I guess, I would say it's all part of the learning curve.
Mm-hmm. Rana, your experience in terms of, are there any segments of the community that you go, oh, pull it back, or, do you ever have that? Because within our community, we have all ways of being activists. Let's put it that way.
I don't, because there are so many parts of my identity that is trying to make a way for those that are coming up behind me. So I don't. When I see when the kids at Westfield State wanted to change their GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, to a QSA, I said, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about this. There's a process to do this. But we had faculty and staff, the elders of the community, that were like, whoa, wait a minute. We're not changing that G to a Q. No. But it was an education moment for the people in the community to understand that generation, the generation that has come up, they were taking on that Q as queer and owning it in a different way. So I
explain that to folks.
A non-pejorative way.
Yeah.
Right, a non-pejorative way. Right. So for many years, that Q with queer was a negative. It was, like calling a gay man a fag, which is still, not okay. Calling a lesbian a dyke. If you're outside of the community, you cannot do that. But the young people were taking on queer and saying, well, yes, we are different. We're going to own that and elevate that to a new status, and not something so pejorative, and not something that we're going to be afraid of and deny.
A level of pride.
Yes, and they took that on. And so it was also a changing of a time, whereas the high schools were using G, they were using Gay Straight Alliance, and the colleges, they are a different level of maturity and growth. So they were taking on queer because they wanted to show themselves as different. At some institutions, they didn't call themselves Gay Straight Alliances, but at institutions like Westfield State, that for many years, they had meetings with a officer at a door, and you could only get into the meeting with like particular people having, you got the message that you could come.
Oh, you gotta knock on the door and say, Joe
yes,
sent me yeah.
Yeah,
The password.
There were for many years, and you would think, oh, that was the 80s.
Yeah.
No, that was the 90s.
Ah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
That was the 90s.
Yeah.
And so when I got to Westfield, I met a group of young people. I was working in the library. I met a group of young people, and they were like, "We want you." And I was like, "I'm just a lowly little assistant librarian, guys, but hey, let's do this."
Yeah.
And so they wanted to make change, and I'm a firm believer in the young ones will show us the way.
Yes.
But we just have to help them not get lost. So we support them and we help them make the path that they need to make. And so there's nothing that certain days, some people are like, what do you think about, Black Lives Matter? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm Black Jewish lesbian. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. My Black queer life matters. My wife is gender non-conforming, meaning she doesn't wear dresses and do up her hair like I do. But her life matters. And everyone that I have dated, I'm the one that's like, no, I'm going to stand up and step in. And when someone looks at my partner weird in the bathroom, I sometimes want to say things like, yeah, I know what's there. They belong here. Don't worry, move on, keep going.
Sure.
Right.
But I fully believe that the young ones will show us the way. We just have to make sure that they are taking care of themselves. So,
well,
brava, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Brava.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Isn't it terrific? It's a different age, and yet it isn't a different age. We still have the battles. We still have to evolve, and it's something that as a senior man in a gay environment, we used to in New York City, it was called SAGE, Senior Action in a Gay Environment.
Right.
And SAGE was, if you were a member of SAGE, you were a sage in a way. You had your wisdom, but you also had to be taught how to live in a world of young folks. And so we are thrilled that as part of the Westfield Gay Alliance, or Pride Alliance, we decided not to call it, I think, Westfield Gay Alliance, because we wanted to be as inclusive as possible, I think. So that's why it's called the Westfield Pride Alliance. We have young people, and you see a picture on the screen of Christopher Clark, who is going to be a bright light in the world. We are so proud of Chris. And at 6:59 in the morning, maybe it's 11:59 when you're watching this or whatever, we're going to take a break and come back with all these great folks and talk to Chris about what it's like to be a 23-year-old. I think he's 23. I may be wrong on that, but I think he's around 20. Maybe he's only 21. Come back and find out. I'm going to play a song by a wonderful lesbian writer-singer from the, is it 80s or 90s, Ronna? This is one of your favorite singers, Tracy Chapman. Look at him. Hi, Chris.
She was late 80s, early 90s.
Yes. Yeah, this is her song called "Talking About a Revolution." We're evolving. All of us are evolving. That's what this program is about, to learn, to evolve, to add some bit of knowledge to where your knowledge base is right now. So let's come back after hearing Tracy Chapman. Maybe you're going to go off. If you are, tune in at another time, and we hope to have more LGBTQ programs in our repertoire, and to learn and to hear the stories of people in our community. Chris Clark, we will talk to you after a break. Listen to Tracy Chapman's Talking About a Revolution.
Don't you know they're talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper. Don't you know they're talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper. While they're standing in the welfare lines, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know they're talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper. Poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Don't you know you better run, 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 run. Oh, I said you better run, 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 run. Finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Oh, oh, while standing in the welfare lines, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know we're talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper. And finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Oh, oh, no. Talking about a revolution. Oh, oh, no. Talking about a revolution. Oh, oh, no.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Wow, it is Tuesday. Wow, I'll say that again. Wow, it's Tuesday, June 1st, 2021, and today we're having a Gay Pride special. That sounds like the Blue Plate special at the diner around the corner. Yeah, but I've got some wonderful guests today. We've been talking in our first hour. If you saw the first hour, you know we had a great discussion without music, because I usually play music between the segments, but we were so into it and it was so important and so interesting, I kind of said, we'll only play one or two songs, and so that's why you're not getting music today, because the stories that we're hearing are so important. And I'm hoping everybody on the beginning of LGBTQI month, Gay Pride Month, are learning something. If you're just tuning in, my name is Bob Plass. I'm with Westfield on Weekends. You can go to westfieldonweekends.com anytime to see all the great things that are happening in Westfield. And I have, as you see, 5 great guests today. They're all coming from different experiences, and each one of them has a story to tell. Let's go from, well, we'll go, if I think Peter is our great producer, Peter Coles. Peter, am I pointing in the right? No, I'm pointing in the right direction now for James Homan, who's my spouse. Is that correct?
No, you're not.
Oh,
I'm on the other side.
Oh,
of you.
Okay. So there we go. Okay, that's James Homan, who is my spouse, and he is from Westfield. He's 72 years old. James, you identify as a gender fluid gay man. Is that correct?
A gender fluid gay man, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
60 pounds ago, I used to be a really hot drag queen, but now I've had to gain weight to fill in the wrinkle.
Oh, God. He was also he performed in 3 Broadway shows, everybody, and worked for CEOs at the finest operations, world-class organizations in both New York City and here. So he comes with a good history. Check out his resume sometime. Now, the resume of the woman to my left.
Oh, and can I also say I was never in the closet?
Oh, and he was never in the closet. Okay.
Yeah, I knew from childhood.
Okay. I am the one right here in the middle who was in the closet. And I am Bob Platz. I'm a gay man, and I am pleased to be a gay man in this wonderful world we live in. The woman to my left or my right, whichever. Where are you on this spectrum here? Rana Lytel. Rana Lytel. Rana, tell everybody how you identify.
I am a lesbian woman of color Jew. I'm a member of the Westfield State community, formerly a member of the Westfield City community, currently living in Springfield.
I see. And you're also a married woman as well.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rana is a representative, a wonderful representative, I might add, of Westfield State University. She has several titles up there. Name one of your titles up there that you're proud of.
Admin assistant. Also, something I forgot to say is I am the advisor to the Queer Straight Alliance at Westfield State. So
fabulous. Okay, now down at the lower box over there, that's not Marcia from the Brady Bunch. That's Tina Gorman, and Tina is the greatest ally anyone could ever have as a gay, an LGBTQI person. Tina, you are the head of the executive director.
Yep, I'm the executive director of the Westfield Council on Aging, which is also the senior center. And, I just want to say, Bob, that I am straight. I am married to a man. We have a daughter. And I'm really happy that the LGBTQ community has given us, those of us who want to be supportive, a designation. I am an ally, and I love that I have that designation because, you're in kind of a funny place because people will say to me, "Oh, I didn't know that you were a lesbian." Well, I'm not a lesbian. I'm straight. I'm married. I have a daughter. But I want to be supportive and welcoming and inclusive to all of the older adults in our Westfield community. So I love the term ally. I think that's absolutely spot on. That's what I am.
Yeah.
Brava girlfriend.
Yeah. Now in the middle is right in the middle square right down there. It's not Paul Lind. Mary Beth, would you tell us who you are?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mary Beth Berrien. I am a high school teacher. I am the proud mother of a trans son, as well as a bisexual daughter, and awesome neighbor to an a gay child that I know personally. And I teach high school science. I've taught in Westfield, and I was part of the GSA at the Westfield Tech Academy, but now I teach currently at Greenfield Commonwealth Virtual School, which is across the entire state, and we are virtual all the time. So this pandemic did nothing to us. But yeah, so I actually am the proud teacher of many LGBTQIA students.
Wow, amazing.
Wow.
And you are a resident of Westfield, I think.
Oh
right?
yeah, I'm
Oh,
a resident of Westfield, and I'm married, and I have 3 children and 2.5 grandchildren. My next one's coming in September. So
unbelievable. How wonderful. All right, and that
Grandmothers never looked like you when I had to.
Hey, the youngest man on this panel, the youngest human on this panel, here he is, Chris Clark. Chris, how are you?
Good morning.
Good.
Tired.
Oh, you're
Drinking a lot of
tired. I
coffee.
know it. This is what it's like to be an older person. You get up. Yeah. You get up early and whatever. You got your coffee there. Chris Clark is, in my mind, one of the movers and shakers of the present and the future. And Chris, would you tell us how you fit into all of this LGBTQI stuff?
Yeah. I identify personally as gay, but I also really like, James had said, gender fluid, gender queer. And I think that those are also wonderful terms. I identify just in the general umbrella term as queer as well, when sometimes it's easier when I can't fully describe what I'm feeling that day. But I identify somewhere in that realm.
Yeah.
Of queerness. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, can I ask, because we told our coming out stories, or some of our coming out stories. Oh, we've got so many stories to talk about, so many things to talk about. We have only 1 hour to do it in now, but we'll come back and we'll add to this dynamic panorama of stories. Chris, tell us about when you discovered your difference.
So I think I was about probably like 11 or 12 years old. And I think it hit me one night when just watching American Idol as a kid. And it's weird. I don't know. I think I just noticed that I really enjoyed like the male performances and the host, who's Ryan Seacrest. I don't know why it was him.
Totally hot. Totally.
Yeah, but I think that's what I was like, oh no, I might not be straight.
Did you have that word in your vocabulary at 11 or 10 or 11?
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, I think I'm gay. Like, this was something I had the vocabulary, the verbiage for. I think I understood the gravity of my situation. Maybe not completely, but I knew I was gay probably at that point. Yeah.
But
it hit me like a train.
Sure. Well, really? Where did you hear the word gay? Or, I mean, you're young, and did you have a knowledge of what it meant to be gay?
I don't really think so. I think I don't know what subconscious like knowledge or where it really came from. I think I always just remember like even Northampton, like that being like the place where gay people are, and like seeing like a rainbow flag and being like, what does that mean? Or like, I think those are like my experiences in Northampton, like just being in that space, even if it was for like a day trip, you know. I think maybe that's where the I don't really even know. Yeah. But I think that might have been definitely some place to kind of be like, oh, there are like gay people exist like in this place. That's where they all are. Yeah.
Would anyone like to ask Chris a question about this? Just because it's so important, especially in this world, to have some model. You know, who were your models growing up, James? Growing up as a gay person? Who was your model?
I didn't have a model.
No,
I didn't have a model. So no, that's where my self-reliance started. I didn't have a model. So I had to sort of be self-reliant. I didn't want to hurt anybody. or hurt myself, but I just sort of proceeded, one instinct at a time.
Rana, did you have somebody that you looked up to that you was a role model for you as you discovered your identity?
History. Because I came out around the time when I was graduating college. So I remember for one of my classes, I read Odd Girls and Twilight Lovers.
Don't know that book. Who wrote that? Do you know? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's still 7:15 in the morning, Bob.
Even though you
had one cup of coffee.
Oh, okay.
But
folks I might tell you that folks, you may be watching this at a later time because we're going to broadcast this throughout the month on our network, and so consequently, it may not be 7 in the morning, but we are taping live at 7 in the morning here. Yeah, but Rana, I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. So Odd Girls and Twilight Lovers is by Lillian Fatterman. And so I had a lot of young gay women in my life who were my friends, but who I was emulating was a mixture of this aesthetic and this style of femininity, but it was performative because the people I was attracted to were performing a level of masculine femininity that I was attracted to. So it was all performance, and there was no one in the 90s, no one was doing that. Everyone was like spiky hair, and I was like, no, let me do that. I want to do something different.
Yeah.
Goth didn't do it for me either.
So I was looking for something that was in books. Stone Butch Blues by
Leslie Feinberg.
Yes. Yeah. There was an aesthetic and a style that I was interested in the writings of these authors that I was working towards.
For me, I only had Liberace, and Liberace was laughed at in a way. I always felt that people appreciated his talent, but he was a clown, and I hate to even use that word. But growing up in terms of role models, there were very, very few. Chris,
what about Elton John?
No, Elton John was later, Mary Beth. I'm 75 years old, so we're talking the 60s and the 50s.
Yeah.
But I thought like David Bowie and Elton John came out kind of like in the 60s.
I
was born in 72, so you have to forgive me for not knowing the gayness back then. But like
my heart's bleeding for you.
Well, I remember as a kid, like we had a family friend who the whispering was he's a he-she. He's a he-she, I didn't know what that was. I just assumed his new name was Jeannie from Eugene, so that's what it was. So we would call him Jeannie. But so I was like 3 or 4, and we had a transgender person that I regularly interacted with, but we didn't have that title for transgender.
Wow. Sure.
And and it was that whispered thing. It was like cancer. You don't say that word out loud either back in the day.
Oh my God, no.
So I think for me to be an ally, it was like they were part of the family parties, but they were apart from the family parties. Does that make sense? So to me, I felt kind of sad for them that they were there, but everybody was doing the underneath talking. As a kid, you can pick up on that kind of stuff. I too agree with Liberace. I remember watching Liberace with my mother. I loved him. I thought he was fantastic. Barry Manilow was like, oh my God, I was in love with him. I ordered a record off a TV that was COD. My mom was so mad at me. But I remember growing up,
Johnny Mathis, for instance. Johnny Mathis.
Yeah, they were different, but they were different people. I never really had a name for it. We used to go to the Cape. I would go to P-Town and ask questions. As a cis straight female, I was like, Mom, why are those two guys kissing? And my mom was like, because they really like each other. And the two gay guys behind us were like, oh, that's so cute. And my mother's like, she's 3. What do you want? You know, like I remember hearing these conversations of stories being told to me, but never really understanding what it meant until, you know, so I was exposed to it. It wasn't like my parents sheltered me from it, but it was always others. It was never like, these are people. It was always, those are those people. And I think that's one of the things, that's one of the things that I, as an adult and as a young child, well, you know, young adult, tried to stop from happening is they're not other people. They're people.
Yeah. Chris,
You know.
Chris, how old are you? Just so we are you 21 or 23?
Just to set the record straight, I'm 22. I'm neither.
So who are your role models now? I mean, did you have a role model?
Even myself, unfortunately, like didn't really have anybody to look up to or model myself as. I think the narrative is always like, it seems like the narrative has been pretty often that just gay people are that other person, that they have like a kind of separate story from like the cis heteronormative story that we hear all the time. Like, I don't think I ever really like had a lot of experience with like LGBT society until I graduated from high school and went to college, where you had more people who are kind of living out. So I don't even think personally I had any LGBT role models growing up. Maybe like Kurt from Glee. Maybe like at this point now, like it's, you know, it's much more common to see like a token gay character on TV, and that was, you know, for whatever impact it has, I think it was still somebody on TV, like, you know, being a gay person. And so even those things of just like, even just some minor visibility, at least I was very lucky to have at least grown up in an era where that's where, you know, it may not have been like the super norm, but like it's now enough, it's accepted enough socially that we even see it on TV and they have lines and character development.
Yeah, the television or media representation of gays, so it has really grown or evolved over the years, because the gay man or more the gay man, there was not a lot of representation of lesbian life on television or in the movies, quite honestly. The gay man was always the fop, the person who was different and he was sort of like strange. I mean, Milton Berle wore a dress, you know, in the 50s. You don't even know who Milton Berle is, Chris. Good. Oh, thank God, Mary Beth knows. Oh, terrific. Tina knows, but the rest of you, all young folks, look him up at any rate. Straight man, incidentally, but he would use dressing up in a woman's outfit as if it were something to be laughed at. Yes, exactly. And I even had a little problem with Will and Grace to a certain degree, because...
Oh, don't jump right there, because there was Nipsey Russell, right? And
Nipsey Russell. Oh, my gosh, yeah. What did he call himself? What was Nipsey Russell was a comedian, not Nipsey Russell. No, it was Flip Wilson.
What didn't he do? Did he do Geraldine?
Yes,
Geraldine. Again,
yes, right.
Again, the laugh line that comes with this, you know, when you're growing up during that time and you're seeing everybody laugh at something that within yourself you're beginning to, well, they're going to laugh at me. They're going to whatever. Did you have those feelings at all, Chris? Did you have feelings like you were going to be laughed at, that you were going to be ostracized?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even worse than that. I mean, I think like even you know, I was in school like, you know, not 10 to 5 years ago. You know, it was the fear of laughed at, but also, you know, the fear of physical violence, the fear of emotional abuse from classmates, more than just being laughed at, just like subliminal bullying. People knew I was gay before I did sometimes too, or where it was almost occasionally like, and I've talked about this with friends before, where it was almost like it's almost like I didn't even really get a full choice in determining what my personal identity was, how I identified in society. Part of the gay label, and I'm sure the same for anybody under the LGBT spectrum, is that it's, I feel, socially assigned in a way where like your straight counterparts or those people begin, like when that othering begins, like there are times when people just randomly in class would mention something about me being gay, even when before I was out, like, you know, students asking me or like looking at me and like making like certain gestures or, you know, just like saying and doing things that like would presume that I was gay or make, you know, make those judgments on me. So in a way, it was kind of like you know, maybe not even like the fear of mockery as more of the fear of just even being labeled as gay, you know. So that was
yeah. We have Mary Beth in the center, who has a totally different experience as the mother of a trans gendered person. And I wondered, from your point of view, looking at your son, your knowledge, his knowledge base, etc., his models, etc., and obviously, my mother and father. I told my mother on her deathbed, actually, I think it might have kicked her over to the other side. I'm not sure. I told my father lived with James. James always tells the story that my father, he always said to my father, I married the wrong class when he was putting him to bed at night. My father was 90 in his 90s, right? You said that, James, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'd kiss him on the forehead. Yeah, I'd tuck him in and I'd kiss him on the forehead and I'd say, good night, Demi. And he would say, James, I love you.
Yeah.
And I would say, Demi, I married the wrong class. And he would laugh and laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But my father didn't know until much later. I was probably, I was running for some state office, which I soon gave up because I realized that I just couldn't handle the
We couldn't afford the medication.
The medication was going to be too much. So I stopped that. But in order to do that, I had the newspapers were saying, you're going to be the gay candidate. And I said, well, no, only if the other person is going to be the heterosexual candidate. You know, I mean, it makes no sense for me to be the gay candidate if you're not going to point out that this man is the heterosexual candidate, et cetera, et cetera. My father then had to be told, and James can remember my sitting around and telling my father, and my father sort of saying, I love you, period, and going on with his life. But Mary Beth, your experience is something that we have to add to our fabric here today. Tell us about it.
So when my son was in 7th grade, he came out to me as a lesbian. And I said, I don't care, as long as you treat each other good. I don't care who you date. And he was like, okay. And then he had like multicolored hair down to about here, said, I want to go blonde. I said, all right. So $400 and 8 hours later, he's back to blonde, long hair, and everything's good. And then he says, I think I need to get my hair cut. I said, okay, so let's get it cut. And he got it cut like Christopher's. And I went, oh, what are you doing? My husband was like, Mary Beth, what are you doing? You know, he's got some mental health issues, and now he just cut his hair off, and you know it's going to be expensive if we try to get it back because extensions were, you know, $3,000 to put them in. And I'm like, that's what he wanted. Like, and I use he a lot because this was pre-transition, but so I was like, that's what he wanted. And then a few days later, he said, hey, Mom, Dad, we need to talk. And I looked at my husband. I went, oh, my God, what if he's pregnant? Like that was, you know, like these were the things that were going through our heads. I'm like, oh, my God, he's pregnant. And then I went, oh, my God, he wants extensions. So I don't know if we have $3,000 for this. And so needless to say, we go into the living room and my husband's giving me the I told you so look. And he said, I think you need to sit down. And we're like, oh, as I'm sitting, I'm going, oh, he's pregnant. He's 14. He's pregnant. Oh, my God. I'm sitting. So I sit to the couch and he looks at me and he said, so I've been thinking about this for a long time. I'm like, okay, not pregnant. So my head's moving as he's still trying to explain. And he goes, I would really appreciate it if you could refer to me as your son and call me Milo. And I said, that's it. I looked at my husband. I went, okay, son, what do you want for dinner, Milo? And that was the end of that. Like that conversation, I was like, oh, I can handle this. This I can handle. We can't handle 14 and pregnant. And I don't know if we'll get extensions correctly done. So like this I can do. I can handle this. And that's when I went into what is this transgender thing, and really dove into it and tried to understand and know what I was saying. Because like for a long time I would say my trans daughter, and he's like, no, I'm your trans son. I'm like, but, oh, okay. So you transitioned to my son. Gotcha. So like, and then of course, messing up the Milo with his birth name, and then, coming up with weird combinations of the two connected, because my brain would go, no, it's Milo, because for 14, almost 15 years, he was another name. So
How did he choose Milo?
He chose it. So my grandson, Mateo, was little, really little. And
Bye, Tina.
Bye. I'm sorry, I have to go. We have a program starting. But,
oh my God! Thank you.
Love you all. I will see you all tonight.
All right, at the flag raising at 6:30 at City Hall. Yeah.
Yes.
All righty.
So my grandson was little, and he used to call Milo T-Mo for Auntie birth name. And Milo was like, I don't want to give him a hard time with this. So he said Milo. So he went from his original birth name, which started with an M, to a different name, kept his middle name. And, we went through the whole name change legally and everything like that. And he's had surgeries, and he's been on, hormone therapy and things like that. So like, I really advocated and fought for this, because like some of the surgeries, they weren't going to give him. He was 16. They're like, yeah, we don't do that. I'm like, yeah, you do. Either you do this now, or you're going to deal with mental health stuff, and then I'm going to own it, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So let's talk, because I'm coming at you. And so, I fought the fight and was able to get him the things that he needed. High school was definitely a wash. Like for Chris, Milo quit school at 16. On his 16th birthday, I signed him out. He got his GED that summer, and then in June 1st of 2019, he graduated with his associate's degree. So oh
my goodness.
He was 18 going on 19 when he did that. And that was what he needed. So like, I, as a parent advocate, as an ally, as put my wings out and protect my students, I would protect any students, LGBT, straight, whatever. I always told my students in my classroom, if somebody comes in, I can only run as fast as the slowest one of you. So go, just, you know what I mean? Go, because I'm going to protect you. Like, and that was where my work with my son came in, was like, hey, we need to figure this out. So we went down to True Colors in Connecticut. I don't know if anybody knows of it, but
no, tell us.
We call it Gay Weekend. It's really fun. The GSAs go, and it's Friday and Saturday. So Friday, they have all these different workshops that are broken out. They have the PFLAG room for parents. They have transgender. They have latex play. They have leather. They have, oh my God, I'm gay. What now? It's just like this whole gay weekend thing down at UConn through a nonprofit organization called True Colors that is run out of Hartford. And then on Saturday, they have like a 4-hour drag queen workshop, which I thought you would appreciate. And they help the kids get into
James,
drag.
we're going.
Yeah, so my son actually was able to go into drag as a transgender. He became in drag. They dressed him up as a man with some like facial hair stuff, right. And then they have a drag show that Saturday night, and then they have a dance for everybody. So it's a lot of fun. It's a long weekend. Like literally you leave at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday, and you do not come back until after midnight Saturday. But the kids they just explode, because, oh my God, there's other kids like me. So I think, while most of you didn't have that opportunity, there is that opportunity now for the younger students. And when I say younger, I mean, they're like Jazz Jennings was there one year. She's transgender.
Right.
The comedian that we saw, I can't remember their name, but the joke was the mother would call them by their female name, like out shopping, and they would go up to her balding with a beard and be like, yeah, mom, like, who's the crazy one now? It's you,
Yeah.
She's calling this guy by a girl name. And you know, just like, so Milo was exposed to transgender people that are, and his problem with transgender people is like, people don't accept you as trans unless you pass. And that's a big issue, because even if you don't pass and you're trans, you're still trans. So like, that's one of his things, is like, I don't judge on whether you look like a female or you look like a male. If you say you're transgender, that's it. And, you know, I think that is something that now, even Chris is 2 years older than Milo, and we grew up next to each other, and Milo's experience was completely different than Chris's, because Milo has that next generation that's coming up. And I think as we get going with this, it's going to get better. And James, back to you with my grandson, Mateo, he would call him Timo. So Milo kept the name close so that Mateo wouldn't get confused. And then he was like, you can't be a boy, you have a girl voice. And now it's Uncle Milo, Uncle Milo, Uncle Milo. So it's not something that couldn't be overcome with a little kid. So if the little kids can get it and say the name, then adults can get it and say the name.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
You are super mom.
Right.
You are just a super mom.
I try to be super mom, super teacher, super neighbor. I just try to
Mary Beth,
if you don't show up tonight with an S on a t-shirt, I'll be very disappointed.
Look at that. Wow.
Brava diva.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I am so ready for this. I was like, I'm gonna wear my rainbows today. I've got
man.
You know, like,
but
you know.
Mary Beth, what was your initial reaction when you learned of your child's identity?
Well, like I said, it was
it horror?
That's it.
Was it fear?
I think I was a little bit nervous. But see, he's so my son is like not the typical trans kid. Like when I met other trans parents down at PFLAG at the meeting, they were like, oh, my kid was on drugs, or they were prostituting, or they were self-harming. And I'm like, I think I'm in the wrong meeting. You know, that none of that ever happened. My son just said, hey, I'm Milo and call me your son. And we were like, okay. And they're like, wow, you lucked out. I'm like, I think what happened was my son and I and my husband, we all had really open relationships where you could talk to us about anything and not be afraid about anything. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to try having sex, or if you're going to try smoking pot, or if you're going to try having a drink, come to us, because we are your people that are going to protect you, and the people that you're doing stuff with might not be. Yeah. So that's where I don't think I was afraid of anything other than, if somebody hurts my child, I'm going to jail. That was my thing. Like, if somebody hurts my kid, I'm going to jail. That's it.
Chris, I want to ask you, you know Milo well because he lives right close next to you, or is your neighbor.
We spent our entire childhood together, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
from the ages of, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, we moved here when Milo was going on 2, so, and then you moved in when you were in grammar school.
Like I was like
4th grade?
6 or 7. 7. Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
So as you were growing with Milo, all right, what were your thoughts on this whole thing? And did it inform your growth as a gay man?
Yeah, I think, you know, I look back and I'm like, well, maybe this is a reason we got along so well, is that we were both kind of on this spectrum together. But I don't know if like anything in our experience together was like nothing was really like, yeah, that seems like a gay and trans thing. It was like we watched cartoons, played games. We were each other's allies too. Like when the neighborhood would have like fights, or the kids would have disagreements, Milo and I were usually on the same side with each other. Yeah, we would really stick together, I think. And then I think once I entered high school, and Milo and I kind of started, you know, growing up and kind of getting into our own groups, and then you know, during my like coming out process and Milo's transition, I think that's when it was kind of like we were on kind of different side, you know, we were, you know, on our own journeys at this point.
Well, he left high school, so he left you alone, right?
No, they went to 2 different schools, Westfield High and Westfield Tech. So they weren't even in the same schools. Like, yeah, so like they literally, once middle school happened, Chris and Milo were like 2 totally different paths completely. Yeah. But they were still neighbors. So there was
Gotcha.
still the talk after school, but not during school. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like,
Okay.
yeah.
Chris, was there a certain freedom to know that your friend was on the spectrum with you?
I think it was great because I always knew like Mary Beth and her whole household were in like my back pocket. You know, I always had this like very kind, friendly, accepting household neighbor. You know, so we between our two houses, we have this community, we have this miniature commune of sharing everything with one another. So what was your question again? I'm sorry, I got caught up in that.
Do you recognize the uniqueness of that? I mean, you really should you should write this or do a movie of it or document it. The uniqueness of that environment.
Growing up,
Mary Beth, your home.
yeah.
I want to come live there.
You are welcome anytime you want to come over. Like I'm telling you, I would rather a room full of gay men than a room full of judgmental hetero men, because yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like any, and I think most parents that don't try to understand that my kid is not like me are the parents that are the problems, because I've seen students like, oh, I can't come out to my parents. I can't. They'll stop everything. I can't do this. And I'm like, how is that even considered being a parent at that point? You are no longer a parent if your child cannot come to you with anything. You're not.
They'll kill me. Yeah.
Right. The only thing you're teaching your child to do is to hide who they are and to be ashamed of who they are. And to me, that's like the biggest thing that you could do that's detrimental to a child, is to make them be ashamed of who they are.
Oh,
that
man.
is so unique.
Oh, yeah.
That is so unique.
Rana, I wanted to check in with you. Do you have any questions for Mary Beth or Chris or some comments?
I want to commend Mary Beth, because as someone that meets these students in college, and still to this day, we are in 2021. We, granted, this past year has been COVID year, as I like to call it. And so they went home. And so certain things had to close off.
Right.
So they have had a year of not being able to live their truth and develop on their college campus, which is very important for many of them, that once they go home, they're whoever mom and dad needs them to be. Yes, mom and dad, I'm studying business. No, they're not. But if mom and dad need to know that, fine. Yes, mom and dad, I went to a party with boys and girls. Maybe not.
Right.
Back in the day when we had a divas, I would be the designated driver, and I would take them all to divas, and I would see my favorite bartender, and she'd be like, college night? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm here to bring the kids to college night. I'm drinking juice in a bar. And so what our young people always need is that ally or that accomplice. And whether that accomplice
that is me, I'm the accomplice. I like that word better than ally. I'm the accomplice.
Is whether that accomplice is that friend or that parent or that neighbor. You need that one that's going to go to bat for you. When at every year we would have a rainbow graduation at Westfield State. Past 2 years we haven't had it, but as soon as we get back to campus, I'm planning on getting all of my graduates back and be like, okay, rainbow graduation right here. I mean, we might have to still mask up, but that'll be fine.
Sure.
And I always tell them, for those that are going under the A, we love our allies. We need our allies, but we need our allies to also be our accomplices, to help us fight and keep the fight going, and make sure that, we're not going to be complacent, but we need those that are going to be in the places that can say, no, you can't say that, and you can't do that, and you can't disrespect my friend, my family. And this is what I tell our students as they are getting their cords and their certificates, and we're having cookies and punch. For those that follow that A, we need you to be neck and neck with us. And sometimes You have to be in front of us because it's hard. And our students that once they graduate, some of them are like, okay, I still can't deal with mom and dad, but I'm gonna live my truth as an adult living in outside of my parents' world. And I need more parents to be like Mary Beth.
Wow. That validation, I think the word validate is so important in everyone's life. I've looked for validation throughout my entire life of my identity, of my life here on earth, to validate that it's okay to be you. It's okay to stutter. It's okay to have curly hair. It's okay to be gay. It's okay. And please, speak about validation for you, Chris Clark. Would you know, what validates you?
Oh my gosh. I think first and foremost, like it's like it all like the validation first has to come with you. I think for the beginning of my story, my post coming out process, seeking validation was really important, but it took me a couple of years to find that internal acceptance, that internal validation to say that I'm legitimate, that I'm like that, like, this is the truth that I want to live. This is the reality that I want to have for myself. And I think that even in the process, like being a teenager in high school and being like the gay kid in class or whatever, I didn't have accomplices. I would say I'd have allies. I had friends who, saw me as gay and appreciated and accepted it for what it was. But I don't think any of us fully understood the gravity of it. But I think I did receive validation from my friends. And as soon as I got to college, I had a gay roommate, and like we lived on the social justice floor in my building. So it was like being gay wasn't even special anymore.
Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if the world, in a sense, I mean, I always like being special, but if the world, everybody was special, but well, it's not going to happen. So go ahead. So you're.
Can I just say how exceptional these stories are to me, because I had none of those references.
No, me either.
I had none of them. There was no one at college. There was no one at home. There was no even validation from a twin brother, an identical twin brother, who was just so homophobic and Republican now that I'm embarrassed. But
yeah, he's the other now, right? He's the other. Yes.
Yeah.
So
you're a Republican?
I'm just so impressed with all three of you.
Yeah, but I must say that it's as an older man, to hear stories makes me hear Chris's story, to hear Mary Beth's story, to hear Milo's story. It helps me to have people beside me as I grow up, as I continue to grow up. I wondered, Chris, you, in terms of your coming out experience and your family, can you talk about that for us? Because we talked about it. James came out to his family early. I didn't come out to my family or my workplace, in some workplaces, until very much later in life.
No, I didn't. You have that wrong.
Oh, I really?
No.
Well, tell me.
I defined myself very early, but they never asked. My parents were never curious enough to ask. And it wasn't until I brought my first husband home. I was doing Hello, Dolly, and we were in Chicago.
Right.
So I flew Chris out, and we went to visit my parents, and they put us in Granny's bed, in Granny's bedroom.
Together?
To sleep together. Even then, they didn't ask.
Well, they were fearful to even know the truth, perhaps.
I don't know.
But
nobody ever asked me. My youngest brother, who is my closest relative, he finally said, we think it's great. I mean, he was raising children, so Bob and I are his children's gunkles.
Yeah, we call ourselves the Gunkles.
They call us the Gunkles. So we're the Gunkles. So the Gunkles are coming. The Gunkles are coming. So
you can call us the Gunkles if you like, Chris. If you want a Gunkle, we're right here for you.
Great, thank you.
So that's my youngest brother and his wife were very tuned into it.
Yeah.
And
well, then let's hear Chris's coming out. Which story? Sorry. I mean, like, where is that? Where are you in that?
Yeah, I think I had a fairly like mild coming out experience where I told my sister. My sister was the first person in my family that knew, and my dog was the first person in my family who knew. He was the one I would practice telling. And then my sister knew, and I think we kind of kept it under wraps for a little while. And then I finally broke it to my mom, but all the while in the background, like everyone at school knew, because unfortunately I was outed. So that was, somebody else told other people, and it was kind of a little scary because for a while I was afraid like my family was going to find out from some other source other than from me.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of like, a lot of mental gymnastics, a lot of like managing like social media and privacy. And so when I finally came out to my mom, like she at first didn't understand. And I think I could see it now in reflection that like so many parents, including my parents, had this perceived reality of what their kid was going to be like. They build this whole story. They're along with you for the ride. You're riding the same train. And then in reality, like I'm on a totally different train. And now I'm telling this person, this train's going 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. And I'm saying, okay, jump on, get on the train. Like we're going this way. We're not going that way. And so I think I could see it even in the way we had first interacted with one another post me coming out, and just our discussions was that, it was kind of like there was this built idea of what I was going to be like. And now all of a sudden that's changed. And now that was 6 years ago. In February, that would have been, I think 6 years. I don't even remember at this point, but it's totally different now. Like, my mom has met my boyfriends, we talk about it. We talk about like gay stuff, the gay world, like little by little. And it was definitely when I was a teenager, we fought for a lot of reasons. As I like entered my rebellious teenage years, I think there was,
he was never really rebellious. Don't let him play.
How did your dad deal?
I would like, so yeah. So I'll get to that. I like lied to my mom one time about who I was hanging out with. And like, it was like, oh, that's the same person who picked you up yesterday. And you said you're hanging out with somebody else. So what's going on here? And so we would have like arguments like that. Especially when I was like, do I tell her that I'm like, dating guys and like, seeing people? I told my dad when I was in college a few years later. My parents are separated. But I shared it with my dad a few years later after I was like, wow, this is just what it is at this point. Oh, by the way, Dad, hey, by the way, I'm gay. And he's like, okay, yeah. And I think for both of them at this point, like they've just accepted me for who I am. I think that that perceived reality, that imagined reality of who I am is up to me at this point. I think they're very aware of that at this time. And I think that they support me as long as I'm happy, I'm successful, I'm doing whatever, fills me. I think that's what they care about.
Rana, was that experience? What about your family? It's in coming out.
They were, if they had an issue, they didn't discuss it with me. I was when I fell in love with with my first adult relationship, I was like, nope, she's in my life. I love her. That's what I got. She's coming to this event, that event. We're having family events. And so they were, everyone was open and welcoming. And my uncle recently said to me that when I had, I had brought some guy home, and he said to me recently, he was like, I wasn't quite sure why you were dating that guy, but I love your wife. She's amazing. and I'm like, he was like, yeah, when you were with that person, I don't know why you were with them, but your wife, absolutely fabulous. And we love her. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I was playing this game of trying to figure out what would be okay. And really, I just needed to live my truth. And so I had this one guy that, I'd show up with and be like, oh, look. And everyone was like, but why?
Yeah. Living your truth. Yes. And I think that is a kind of great place for us to stop our conversation because or continue our conversation. One of the things as I started, if you roll the tape back, if you start at the beginning of this program, I got to make a confession. I am never nervous coming into the show. Never have any kind of sort of trepidation or anything. I mean, the night before, I'm excited about who I'm going to have on, et cetera, et cetera. I was so excited yesterday. But there was a moment last night, folks, that I started to think, oh, my God, tomorrow, how will it be? What will I say? How will I be? Et cetera, et cetera. And, is that true?
Hey, Bob, do you remember how we started this story?
Yeah.
Tell your story.
Oh, no, it's exactly right. But that's Peter, our producer, who we thank very much. Pete Cole's our producer.
Just tell your story.
Well,
that's the powerful part.
But the interesting thing is that even as an experienced leader of or talk show host, let's put it that way, I was nervous. I said some things, et cetera, mainly because I'm not used to talking about it in public like this and having discussions. Chris, you're shaking your head all the way. Tell us as we finish off here. Were you the same way? Were you nervous?
Yeah. I'm also going to be emceeing the Pride flag raising tonight, and I'm equally as nervous. I never would have imagined that. All of a sudden, it was always kind of working through the shadows and hiding and kind of keeping a low profile and passing as a heterosexual person in society. And now all of a sudden we're all all right, we're doing this. We're going to here's the rainbow flag. Here are my rainbows and unicorns. And hey, look at me. I'm queer. Do you want to join the party? And signaling to the rest of the queer people in Westfield and Western Massachusetts. It's a little scary, but I think it's because we're really shaking things up.
Oh, it's an historic time, and we thank Westfield. And as you know, with the flag on the green, et cetera, there's going to be further discussions about the gay issue, flag issues, et cetera, in Westfield, of all kinds of the discussion of difference. And we've got to keep that going. And I invite everyone to our flag raising. If it's June 1st and you're listening live, come tonight to City Hall at 6:30 and see the flag being raised, and then look at the flag on the green and say, wow, isn't our town an inclusive town? And allow us to celebrate, because we will come and celebrate with you your identity. And identity is not about choice, incidentally. It's about who you are, who you're born into. And it's not about choice. So whether you have a cause, that's a choice. Whether who you are is a difference. And we're going to continue the conversation. James Holman, my spouse, I love you very much, very, very much. I'm so proud of you. Ronna Lytle, I've known you for years. I can't wait to have some wine or even water on my back porch with you.
Wine.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Wine.
And the same thing for you, Mary Beth. And Milo is always welcome. Milo is always welcome in our house. And Chris Clark, as your gunkle, your official gunkle now. All right. You are welcome to join the party wherever we are. And
Whenever.
and the Pride Alliance, the Westfield Pride Alliance is really proud. We also thank Tina Gorman from the Senior Center. We thank Pete Coles, our great producer. I thank Jay Pagluka for stepping out for it today. We welcome all kinds of comments on this and further discussion. For the going out song, everybody, I've chosen Ben Platt. Ben Platt is the star of Evan Hansen. He was the star of, I think, The Politician, Ryan Murphy's show on television, and a wonderful singer and songwriter who is out and gay. He's going to sing a song by the gay composer, believe it or not, or maybe he identified as bisexual, Leonard Bernstein. Listen to Somewhere. Listen to the lyrics. Maybe somewhere there's a time that we can all put aside our differences and celebrate each other, who we all are. Thank you, guys. I really look forward to seeing you again and having you back on. And everybody, thanks again. And see you next time on Wow, It's Tuesday.
6:30.
Oh, yes. 6:30 tonight for the flag raising, everybody. See you next time.
See you then.
Thank you.
There's a place for us somewhere, a place for us, peace and quiet and open air. Wait for us somewhere. There's a time for us somewhere, a time for us. Time together with time to spare, time to look, time to care. Someday, somewhere, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving somewhere. There's a place for us somewhere, a place for us. Hold my hand and we're halfway there. Hold my hand and I'll take you there. Somehow, someday, somewhere.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating, Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.